Okay, so we're on Facebook Live, alhamdulillah, and then just revert me to host and we'll be good to get started. So, assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salam ala rasulullah. My name is Raniah Elgendi. I'm the Programs and Outreach Director for CAIR-Florida. Thank you guys for joining our social lunch hour series. So it's our series every Wednesday at noon Eastern time to, make sure that you have a break in your day, talk about different topics that are relevant to our lives right now, get some knowledge and just take a nice break and listen in on some discussions with all of our various guests each week. So today we have a very timely topic with our special guest, Shaba Shams, and all about work from home, which the majority of us are doing, and work from home tips and tricks and how we can really make the most of our situation no matter what it is. Shaba is a leadership and management consultant. She has many degrees, mashallah. She is an entrepreneur and very well versed in organizational management and leadership skills. So we're really excited to learn from her today. And along with her, we have Tanya Clevenger, who is CAIR-Florida's Operations Director and Acting Civil Rights Director. And of course, our Executive Director, Mr. Hassan Shibly himself. So, for those who are on the Zoom call, you have the ability to ask questions in the Q&A section and also chat. And then for everyone live streaming, feel free to reach out to CAIR-Florida on our social media handles with any specific questions that you have. But we've got a great program for you today. So to go ahead and get it started, I want to open it up to all of you and say, thank you for joining us today on your lunch. Hopefully you get to eat lunch at some point today. And, working from home, the majority of the world is working from home for those who are privileged and fortunate enough to be able to do that. And it looks very different for everyone. It looks different for people across the US. So I want to open it up by asking each of you, what is your work from home setup or routine? So what is a day in the life of Hassan Shibly, Tanya Clevenger, and Shaba Shams look like at home for you guys?
Go ahead, Hassan, since you are the only male in the room.
Oh man, putting me on the spot there. Alhamdulillah, to be honest, for me, I was brought up by my teachers to always look for the opportunity in every challenge. My philosophy and what our faith, I believe, teaches us is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never takes, He only gives. So in every challenge, in every loss, there's always opportunity to be found. So in my line of work, alhamdulillah, with CAIR-Florida, we're blessed to have 5 offices across the state. And there's a lot of issues across the country, and alhamdulillah, CAIR-Florida has been very influential on a national, even international level. So I average traveling every 2-3 days. I'm in a different city. In the same week, I may be in Miami, Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, Fort Myers, Panama City. I'm all over the place. So the blessing of this is it's forced me to actually be home, which is a great gift for me personally, to be honest. I've enjoyed being able to slow down a little bit and then use that time to catch up on building the organization, building the work. Alhamdulillah, we're in Florida, we have beautiful weather. So just being able to wake up, I always make sure that I start my day with this beautiful book called The Prophetic Invocations. It has a beautiful set of du'as in there. One of them is called Wird al-Latif. So I always start my day with some beautiful prayers that really realign us and remind us of our purpose and of our intention and why we are here and why we do what we do. Oh Allah, I woke up to you with health and protection and faith. So continue your blessings upon me. Beautiful prayers that really just recognize God's blessings upon us and set a positive mood for the day. I always have to make myself a strong cup of coffee, and while I drink my coffee, then try to do some tasbihat, just again, getting the motor going, with remembrance of God, because I believe remembrance of God really inspires the work we do. We fight for civil rights, we fight for justice, we help the poor, the needy. This is all the work of God's messengers. It's the work that God loves, but it sometimes is very challenging. A lot of times it's very challenging, and you need that strong sense of faith and guidance to get us through the day. So I always like to start my day with that, and then alhamdulillah, just blessed to sit in the backyard and endless phone calls and meetings and Zoom meetings, pretty much late in the day as well. And then I always try to end my day, working for CAIR literally, and as the staff will see, they're getting emails and messages from me at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m., which isn't healthy. I'm going to have to change that. But right now we are in a very challenging time. But when the work is done, I always like to also finish it with a little bit of Quran, a little bit of reflection. And alhamdulillah, for me, it's not too different other than the fact that I'm able to actually spend some time in the house, whereas normally I'm traveling every 2-3 days. So it's a blessing. I think we are very privileged that we are able to work from home. Everything we need to do our work is either here on our phone or, you know, on our computer, laptop, that we can work anywhere. And the advantage of CAIR-Florida is we are a remote office. We have 5 offices, so we're already used to working remotely anyway. So the physical structure doesn't really make a difference, I think, in that respect.
Alhamdulillah. Ms. Shaba, would you like to keep it going?
Absolutely. Hello, citizens of the world. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be part of this panel and share my experience as a teleworker, I would say. My experience teleworking personally, or working from home, as you may call it, really goes back in years. For the past, I would say 15 years. I have implemented a good structure as a teleworker just because as a college professor, as a senior manager and director, I am called to doing a lot of work away. In fact, my most productive days are probably the ones that I spend at Starbucks or in my home office. So I'm pretty used to it. And then in the recent year, I became a full-time entrepreneur and knowledge broker. So I've established and designed, like I was sharing earlier, that there is a difference between making a living and designing your life. And I'm one of those fortunate and lucky people that I got into designing my life, understanding what really matters to me, from my health and my faith and family, and just different things that really are the foundation and the pillars of who I am. And it took me a long time to create that blueprint for my life. And then once I started kind of walking into the designing lifestyle, I established a routine for my peak day, my routine for my lowest peak day, and so on and so forth. So I have a plan and a contingency plan and the plan behind the plan. So the reason is because I understand that people are at different energies, at different levels, at different efficiencies. And you have to understand that sometimes you can produce 150% a day, but at that time, other times it'll be probably 80%, 50%, 20%. And the idea here, or the secret, is really not to beat yourself too much over the levels where you are productive or your level of energy, but instead of bracing it and let that energy be in a way, because you do not want to conflict with who you are, but rather navigate it and let the flow go on. And then the next day will be another day. So when coronavirus hit us and a lot of people transitioned into this teleworking, including my spouse and a couple of people that I was working with and coaching, I did realize that the transition was not clear for everybody, and it was not that easy. You go to work, you have the commute, you get dressed, you have all the to-do list for you to get into that mindset of being in the workplace. And all of a sudden, your commute goes from the bedroom to your office, for instance. And sometimes your desk is in the bedroom, which is not a good idea, by the way. And we'll talk about it, how it's important to set up a work area that stimulates you and is conducive for you to work and be creative. So it wasn't a given. It wasn't for everybody. And I realized that there was a struggle in a lot of people's mind into shifting and transitioning into this new way of life. And then that led me into creating a survey monkey that I sent out, and I captured the essence of the challenges of what people are going through, that I would be more than happy to share with you in a little bit. And then the few things that some people do to really have a productive day at work. And I'm working actually on getting a book together called From Work to Tele-Work, a guide to having a productive day at home. And how can you repeat that day over day, day after day, to make it a consistent thing, which is a very important concept to become successful and productive, to be consistent and disciplined. So my routine, like I said, my peak day would be waking up at 6:30 in the morning. I am fortunate to have a gym home. So I go hit the treadmill for 2, 3, 4 miles a day. By 7:30, I'm literally popping and hopping, where most people have just like started needing a first cup of coffee. And then of course I shower, I change my clothes as if I'm going to the office. I mean, it's a little more relaxed, because I'm home in shorts and flippers, but still, I get myself into changing my clothes and getting dressed to go to my office. And then I block time. It's very important to block time. And then tell yourself, from next hour or 30 minutes, whatever your attention is, work on something and then check it out when you're done. If you have long-term projects, like I have some writing to do and it takes a long time, again, dedicate some time, and then dedicate time for emails, dedicate time for lunch, dedicate time for a Turkish coffee daily with my husband. So that's very important as well. So you really have to think about, this is the day that I am high energy, how much I can accomplish. And then the second layer is like, I slept in because I watched a cartoon or a movie last night, or I had a game or a conversation with friends. I'm not feeling it. 8:30, maybe 9 o'clock. What can my day be today and still remain happy and fulfilled and satisfied with it, even though you see the bar went from 6:30 a.m. and 4 miles and whatever to, let me get a cup of coffee and drag my feet to the office, and then the next layer and the next layer. So embrace it, embrace the circumstances and the transitions of life, and follow that energy. Like Abraham Hicks say, it's as if you were in a river and there is a flow to life. And the more you are trying to oppose the flow, the more difficult it becomes. So the idea is that don't resist your energy of the day, and instead try to make the best out of it. So again, it takes a lot of, thanks to Hassan mentioning the prayers and the meditation, and just be one with yourself. And I call it being, you create this sense of your being and understand who you are and where your heart is. And then you develop a sense of balance, even in the worst time, because you have to believe that the next day will be different, and you have control over changing your mind and switching to a better day next day. So you, between the ups and the downs and that, movement of life, just understand who you are and how you can be most productive given different circumstances.
No, thank you. That's amazing. First of all, I'm very motivated to start working out again. Inshallah, I have to learn from
20
you.
minutes a day. That's all you need. 20 minutes a day.
And I'm very excited to dig deeper in a few minutes on those techniques that you shared with us. And even we have a snippet from your booklet that you're working on with those tips. So we'll be sharing that in a little while. But just to kind of close out this question, Tanya, so like Hassan mentioned, CAIR has 5 offices throughout the state. The vast majority of our staff is now working remotely. And you are our operations director, so you get to see it all. But please give us some insight into what your daily routine is like, or how your setup is, and any insight that you have.
Thank you, Raniah. One of the things that I find fascinating is just how different each one of our days can be, or what challenges we have to go through. So if this has taught me anything, is flexible, to be adaptive to what we're dealing with. My everyday life has changed, not because I'm working necessarily remotely, because as we mentioned, we have 5 offices, so we have to work with that remote team. We have to interact and engage in ways that are not the traditional work setting. But my life has changed in the sense that now not only am I a working mom, but I'm a working teaching mom. And so I've had to incorporate my family into my day schedule, which means I don't have a 9 to 5 schedule necessarily anymore, but my team is working 9 to 5. So for my supervisors out there, that means I'm available to them, but from 8 to 10 o'clock, I may be sitting down, getting my son breakfast, getting him started with his online classes, then coming back to my desk, trying to do work that can be interrupted, maybe one-on-one staff meetings where everybody thinks it's funny when the kid pops into the video, right? It's that real life of, some people have the cat, some people have the bunny. My children love to just pop their little head in sometimes from under my desk. I'm like, what are y'all doing? But incorporating that into our everyday life. And, for me, that's that balance that I need to stay sane during these times when we're home. This is week number 3, right? So I do the same thing. I think Shaba mentioned some of the good techniques of breaking up my schedule. I know when the kids are going to get antsy and it's time for lunch and it's time for that break. So instead of having a 9 to 5 schedule now, I might have an 8 o'clock check for emergencies, go back, check with the family, come in, do work from desk, start my first meetings around 11. And then the day kind of continues into the evening, like Hassan said, once the kids go back to bed and settled in and dinner's done, well, now it's time to go through the emails. And the afternoon's dedicated to all the staff meetings and making sure everybody's got what they need. So this has kind of been great because, again, our days are shifting. We don't always know what we're going to accomplish, but setting those daily goals, setting a schedule, and knowing what my day is going to, I hope, look like, I think is kind of a great place to be.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. So I'm hearing across the board that putting things into buckets and having, dedicated times for each bucket area is a strong, technique. And so I think I also need to start implementing that. So I'm going to be taking down notes during the call for everything I need to start doing, even though both my bosses are on the call. So maybe I should mention that. Shaba, I'm really excited. I know you put out a work from home survey, and you got a lot of input as to what are the challenges for people and what techniques can they use. I actually wanted to try something out. So before we get to the insights from your survey, we have a 2-question poll for our attendees on Zoom. So sorry for everyone who's on Facebook Live, but let's see if this works. This is our first time trying. Oh, I'm in the Q&A. This is our first time trying the poll, which I actually cannot see any longer. So never mind, we're not going to do that. Instead of our Zoom poll, we're actually just going to have you, Shaba, share what were the findings from your survey that you sent out about everyone who's working from home. I have a screenshot, so let me know when you want me to share that.
Sure. So I'm actually on my survey right now, just to be able to kind of just go back to a few questions, because I did ask a few questions that I can just share with you, and then we go to the screenshot for the 2 challenges, that question about what are the 2 challenges that you face working from home. But just for our audience here, just to have a sense of what type of questions that I've asked. So the first question that I asked in the survey is, do you have a dedicated workspace where you can work at your home? So 96% said yes, and only 3.5% said no, they don't. And I can't emphasize enough that it's very important to have a dedicated work area in your home that you call it your own. Have your little pen bucket for a pen and pencils, or just some images that inspire you, whatever really you need to create that your own space where you can put your notes or your laptop or whatever. Very important. I'm not a big fan of people dragging their laptops around the house and sitting at the table kitchen sometimes and the diner table sometimes, and because really you have to find energy in your house, and the spot that you occupy is very important. And then you will see that the flow again of your energy as you sit in that same spot kind of really is generating more ideas and more creativity. And I'm all about creativity. So if you sit in a space that's not conducive to you to be creative, find another one, because that probably does not work for you. The second questions that I ask is, how satisfied are you with your current work from home arrangements? So out of my respondents, I have 59%, actually they were very satisfied, 29 somewhat satisfied, neither satisfied, neutral people 7, good for you, and then somewhat dissatisfied 3.7. So, and these people, as I go back to the survey, when I looked into the other responses, are usually people who have kids at home, a lot of distractions, they don't have a space to work at. Those are really the people who popped up as or came up as not very satisfied or somehow dissatisfied. The third question is, what are the 2 biggest challenges you are currently facing while working from home? And Raniah, you can go ahead and share the screen, because I had different responses here, but I'm just going to focus on the ones that are high, like where the percentage of responses of the challenges are. And let's see. So the one that rated the highest is too many distractions at home, which is 33.33%. And I can see how distractions can be a big challenge. So there are different distractions expressed by the participants. Family and having kids, even though they are motivational aspects of our lives because we love them. However, they can be very distracting, and then not having a space where we can work, and then social media, emails. And then I had a respondent who said, my boss is a micromanager and they check on me every 2 seconds. So that's also distractions. So as we are teleworking, we need to understand that communication must be maintained. However, the communication or overload of it can be a huge distractions. If your emails are popping every 2 seconds, how much work can you accomplish? So that's the highest responses. The next one, which is 18.5, let's see here, I have 3 responses. I don't have access to a tool or information I need to do my job. Internet connectivity, general anxiety about the impact of coronavirus on my life. And so the two other ones are pretty straightforward. You know, it's tools that you don't have access to, or bad broadband, you know, especially nowadays that everybody's living on online. I find it very difficult to stream. For instance, I do a lot of personal growth videos with different, you know, professional development gurus out there, and I find it really difficult just to get through one video recording or a lecture, just because you have to upload all the time your internet. The one that I have been concerned about, actually I dedicated in my little guide a section, is general anxiety about the impact of coronavirus on my life. And I have one participant say, you know, either I get it or I have to care for somebody who has it. And it seems that this is a source of distraction in a way that creates another aspect of working from home under these circumstances, because at the end of the day, we are at home, or most of us are at home because of the pandemic, and it has a different impact on our mental health, anxiety, depression, fear of getting the virus and how to deal with it, which can be a lot of stressful at this time. So how can you be productive when you have this kind of a distraction? Again, I go back to mind setting. You need to be positive. You have, you know, faith and prayer for me is a big thing. So you have to be connected to your creator and kind of just put the positive energy out there. And then keep in mind that you can't control what you can't control. We do not have control over the disease, but we do have control over how it's impacting us and what we're doing with it. We have all these guidelines on how to stay away from, you know, spreading the virus, and following all these rules and these guidelines, which I have been following even before they were implemented, to be honest with you. So that's how you really care for yourself and others. But at the same time, you only allow fear so much in your life once it becomes an obstacle for you to step up and be productive and be good and positive to your family and your community. Then you really have to sit with yourself and reset your thinking, because at the end of the day, we don't have control what we don't have control over, and we need to embrace and let, you know, let God do its thing at the same time. So these are the responses that I received about the challenges, and I have one more that I want to share with you. It's keeping a regular schedule. See, I don't have control over how the virus is going to affect me in a way, but I do have control over keeping up with my schedule, and I do have control over my consistency and my discipline. So focus on the things that you guys can actually change, control, and plan, and let go of the things that you can't control, including whether I'm going to get the coronavirus or not. So the last question here, actually I have two more. How easy or difficult is it to work from home? Same thing. I have 37% that says very easy, 33 that says somewhat, 18 neither easy nor difficult. I love these neutral people. It's like we are in the middle, and whatever you say, we say. And then of course 11% says somewhat difficult. Again, I go back, if I broke down these responses, it's people with families, people who don't have communication established with their coworkers and things like that. So, and then my last question, name 3 things you do to be effective at home. And I actually created a category just because some of the responses was pretty redundant and the same. Just quickly here on communication, I have recommendations or practices of participants that say, keep the communication open, face-to-face meeting in the morning, about consistency, you know, set a regular schedule, shower, coffee, you know, social time, as if you were going to work, and get yourself in that mindset. Work area, as I mentioned earlier, you need to keep it tidy, closed door, desk facing wall, maybe that removes some of the distractions. And then, you know, self-care and self-love. Don't forget yourself in the midst of all this. So take breaks, take a walk outside, you know, your property, work out and exercise. You know, I have been very religious about my self-love and my self-care because it's important for my happiness and balance. And like we say in Arabic, فَقِدَ الشَّيْء لَا يُعْطِيهِ. If you don't really gain a love of yourself and happiness and balance and harmony, you cannot give it. And at this time, it's so important for us to adapt this positive attitude about life, to be able to spread that love, that gratitude. And how do you do that? So I find myself, I go on walks, on bike rides. Last week I hiked for 7 miles in a nice trail, and I'm lucky to live in Florida, so outdoors is just amazing. We can take advantage. Yesterday we went, my husband and I, on a walk on the beach, and it was fantastic, as long as we are really mindful about, keep distance from people, and I have gloves and mittens and mask and all that stuff. So you can still have a sense of balance and give yourself things that make you happy and create balance in your life. Get dressed. Somebody said get dressed as if I'm going to work. Occupy the kids. And then avoid social media. I belong to so many different pages and groups just because I'm interested in I have the mentality of I am a citizen of the world, and I have a global citizenship approach to my life. So I belong to a lot of groups, and I like to learn from everybody. But what I do is I just set up a specific time where it's my social media time. And sometimes I can multitask. I do my social media when I'm watching a TV show, for instance, or I'm cooking and laundry, something like that. So that way I don't really feel like my whole time is invested that way. So these are the different things that I got from the survey. Let me see here.
Thank you, Shaba. While you're looking for any other survey results, we did get a few comments in the chat, so definitely encourage everybody to give us your comments and to put in questions into the Q&A section. So we have one comment that says, thank you for discussing these challenges. It makes me feel less alone that I'm doing something wrong. It's difficult to focus at home, and these tips regarding discipline will help. So definitely, I think that's part of the social distancing, is that you can feel isolated on your own. So it's important to know that, we're all going through this. And then, having children is very difficult. And sometimes you have the logistic limitations of your internet is very slow, or, it can't handle your capacity. So that might be a very real thing, right? Like maybe you need to look into upgrading your internet provider, or maybe there's ways that you have to work with your family. But I do want to touch on one thing that you mentioned, which is the distractions, because I am a queen of distractions. I've got my phone and I got my laptop, and my older brother shared with me that actually research shows it takes like between 2 and 3 minutes when you're working on a task and then you get distracted. It could take up to 2 to 3 minutes to reorient yourself. So if I'm working on a project and then I just answer an email and I answer a message, it's going to take me like a few minutes to reorient yourself. And if you think about, you do that a few times in an hour, then it's easy that you feel like you're not even able to finish, one task or one project. So wanted to ask each of you, for those moments where, you have a lot of distractions and you need to reorient yourself, you need to refocus, what is a positive like mantra or a positive saying or even mentality that you can tell yourself, just to like, you're feeling overwhelmed in the middle of the day, you got a lot of distractions and you need to, recenter yourself. So I wanted to ask each of you what you might say in that situation. And I don't know, I guess to be fair, I'll just go from left to right. So Tanya, you're up first.
So distractions are completely unavoidable from what I can tell. One of the things that I've done and love now is we're working on this new platform that lets me set up the do not disturb button. So if I'm trying to crunch down and get something done that I can't afford those interruptions, I put it up. And if I have team members that, let's just say you don't have that option, but if I have team members, I want to try to let them know, like, hey, I have this project, it needs to get done. You're important to me, each one of you, each one of your issues, to my family, even, you can tell them the same thing. But setting that time where you can go maybe no more than an hour without that interruption, so you can get some of those bulk tasks done. I think that's essential to being productive and very much to your sanity.
Definitely. That's great. And then Shaba, you're next in the lineup. What is that positive mantra or saying that you can use to reorient yourself in the middle of the day?
Well, I mean, there are different things here that we're talking about. One is feeling overwhelmed with the task you have to do, just a feeling of being overwhelmed, whatever the emotion come from. And the other one is distraction. So the former, you, again, I go back to, I am a person of faith, and I love the idea of, since I'm working from home, I've been praying on time. So that's really important to me as a Muslim, and I pray 5 times a day. So that really helps me, allows me to reset my buttons in a way, because 5 times a day I'm disconnected from everything and everyone, and I take that time just to be, you know, kind of centered again. And sometimes a good energy comes through that, based on the level of, I guess, focus and khushu' that I have. The other thing is meditation. I've been meditating for the past 2-3 years or something like that. So when I have that rush feeling of being overwhelmed, is I just withdraw myself from everything, and I take a time to, you know, to sit and kind of reflect on myself, and try to assess and analyze the emotion, where it's coming from. So these are like tricky things that you need to navigate, and you have to find a, like I said, going back to knowing your blueprint and designing your blueprint, what really works for you. And the way you do that is really by analyzing yourself, you know, daily. Ask yourself, when I do this, does it work? Oh, it doesn't work, so let me try something else. And then, I don't know if you guys journal. Journaling is very important if you're getting to know oneself. Journal and see really through your journals, what is it, what methods that you apply and you use that are very productive, at what level, at what layer, that you can just pull from that and you use it when needed. Now, when we go back to social media or emails or phone calls or that, this is absolutely something you have control over. And actually, in one of my participants, I had somebody who said, I post a schedule on my door, and I tell my family when I'm not available, for instance. Emails, it's really something as easy as simple, you know, or notifications, turn off your phone, turn off your email. And then again, I think most people fail into becoming productive and structured because they try to chew more than they, you know, they can actually serve themselves more than what they can chew. If you cannot block for hours, start with 20 minutes, start with 15 minutes. In fact, there is a program called 15 Minutes to Success for time management, where, and I actually challenge you all to try it. Try to log in every 15 minutes what you do during the day and see where your time is going. If you cannot allocate 1 hour away from your supervisors and bosses and coworkers, do 30 minutes at a time, do 20 minutes at a time. And during those 20 minutes, commit to doing just that one task. I know we've been big recently in saying multitasking, but research is showing that multitasking is really a failure, because and it's true, your brain cannot process 20,000 files at the same time. So be mindful of your mental and physical and presence abilities, and know your blueprint to be productive, because if you cannot allocate more than 15-20 minutes, commit to that time, focus on that task. When it's done, move it aside and go to the next thing. So think about what you can control, and things you can't control. And the things you cannot control, try to break them down in a way you can manage them, and they become very manageable.
No, I love that. And sometimes it's like you said, you just need to give yourself a break, like kind of like a timeout, but a positive timeout.
Absolutely.
From everything and take a break and reorient yourself. Okay, Mr. Hassan, you've emailed me, let's say 10 times, and I've gotten 20 messages, and I might start crying. What should I do to kind of get myself back to square one? Hypothetically, this never happens, of course. And you're on mute, so. You're on mute, Hassan.
If only that happened in real life, then the emails wouldn't matter.
I was gonna say, don't try to find a new job. We need you. Stick with it. Alhamdulillah. So, it's a mixture of discipline, organization, systems, and tools as well. So what I struggle with, quite frankly, is a lot of times I feel like I have very little control over my days and my time, because I'm at the mercy a lot of times of community leaders reaching out, donors reaching out, clients reaching out, government officials reaching out. So literally I'll be on a phone call, and before I hang up, I got 2 other phone calls to make. So that becomes quite a bit overwhelming. In addition to that, a lot of times I'll say, okay, I have A, B, and C tasks I have to do. But before then, I have to go through all my text messages, emails, and WhatsApp to respond to everybody to see if there's something urgent. And that gives me anxiety if I don't know what I haven't responded to. But then I realized I could go almost, maybe a full week just trying to catch up on the text messages and the WhatsApp and the emails without even touching my task list. And that isn't sustainable, because then real emergencies or real things that have to get done will not get done. And I'm at the mercy of responding to everybody. So in this case, just having a proper system, letting people know, okay, this is my assistant, anything you need, it has, go through them, they're going to filter it out. And nowadays, Tanya, I really commend her for partnering this up with Intuitive Solutions, and we get remote assistance, and there's different packages out there, and don't think it's beyond your means. For a lot of professionals, if you are in the professional capacity where you need an assistant, sometimes you can get some extra help for a couple $100s a month, and that peace of mind that you can buy by having somebody manage your tasks and filter things out for you, so you're not always responding, and you can actually get into the creative mode, the creation mode, is a big blessing. So number one is, honestly, now recently I changed. Before it was a priority where, okay, I'm going to get through my text messages, my WhatsApp, my email, then I'm going to do my task list. I realized it won't happen. So, you have a system in place where anything that is important, you have your support staff, your team, they're gonna make sure it lands on your task list. Now, when it comes to the task list, every night, I try to do it weekly and nightly. Make a task list for the following day and include things from your exercise to your entertainment to your spirituality to your projects, and put them in the order that you want to do them, in order of priority. And then don't worry about everything else, because there's always going to be a million things on your list and it'll always stress you out. But you can have different files, different containers for different tasks, different categories. Just realize this is all you can work on for today. If you get it all done, great. If not, you're going to move it on the next day, and just work in order of priority. Don't worry about everything else, because it can get a bit overwhelming. And learning to say no. I love saying no recently, and just not taking on more than you can chew, as our dear sister was sharing with us. And it's a team effort, and it's a constant learning and adapting situation, but it happens. And I've switched, honestly, now, even WhatsApp, unless it's especially in the group message stuff, don't touch that more than once a week, in my opinion. Find a way to highlight the key people that you need to interact with. In my work team, we used to do work through WhatsApp, which is problematic because social media is also through WhatsApp. Friends are also through WhatsApp, and it's different. So just utilizing Microsoft Teams, or we have different chat boxes per project. And I know this is the priority for me to check, and I can leave the social media, the family things to later. And just letting people know, if they need you, this is how they can get a hold of you. And it may not be through contacting you directly. It may not be through calling, because again, if you're always responding to phone, and I try to explain this to people, because subhanAllah, sometimes everybody with a problem in the community sometimes wants to call me instead of calling the office. And I'm like, listen, if I just forget helping, if I have to answer every phone call I get and just listen to what the problem is, I will literally have no time to do anything. So it's not from a place of arrogance, but with respect, just letting people know, I want to hear your issue. I want to hear your conflict. But realistically, if I were to hear everything, I wouldn't have time to do anything. So this is the system we put in place. You can call the office. There's a form you fill out. There's a team, because CAIR-Florida is not a one-man show. It's a team effort. And we want to help you as an institution, as a team, not as just a one-man show that can get bottlenecked.
No, that's perfect. So actually, we did get a question about, someone who's having immigration border issue. So that's a perfect example, right? We want to follow the organization's process to make sure that we're able to handle it most effectively. So Mansoor, I did see your question, and actually I'm going to ask a CAIR staffer to put in our number so you can just
and let me actually, that's a great, Raniah, I'm really glad you brought this example, and the brother who answered it, may Allah bless you for asking. But how can one get a hold of Hassan? You don't need to get a hold of Hassan, because Hassan is not CAIR-Florida. Hassan is a part of CAIR-Florida. The solution, and this way of thinking, and may Allah bless you, but it's common within our community, is, especially, I don't know, and maybe I'm being a little bit like stereotypical on the Arab style, but like, I know, like when I go in the Middle East, like everybody wants a wasla, and everyone wants to speak to the big boss, and they think the big boss is in charge of everything. And but that's not how we do things here. It is an institution, it's a team, and people shouldn't think that they need me. I'm just a small part of the team. You need the team, and you can contact the team by going to CAIRflorida.org, by calling our office, 813-514-1414. We have a text number as well, but you get in touch with the organization. The organization will make sure the right people get in touch with you. Again, it's an institution. It's about institution building, not about individuals.
That's perfect. And especially,
sorry, Ronnie, I was going to say, I was going to go ahead and share that contact information in the question box, but the best way is to actually reach us via text. And that way we get it immediately and you guys can get in touch with us.
Perfect. Thank you, Tanya. Yes, and what we said about the notifications as well, if anyone out there is like me, when you see the red notification bubble, it just builds your anxiety. And I think that is, it's a part of just like a mental mind shift, right? Like you have to just condition yourself to slowly start being okay with, you know, not responding immediately or not, you know, checking those things as frequently as possible. Shaba, I want to give it to you to, you know, any final remarks, and then we have a few more questions for you guys coming in from the different channels. So let me give it to you real quick and then continue with the question.
Yeah, so like I was mentioning earlier, I think we're going through a unique and unpredictable time period right now. That nobody really expected. You know, I remember at the end of 2019, everybody was thinking like 2020 is going to be an amazing year. And I saw a video not long ago of this Arab woman. Actually, she was talking to the phone and saying, you know, just crying, 2019, would you please come back? Because really 2020 doesn't seem to have gotten on a good start. And my biggest thing that I am noticing right now, and being kind of a futurist in mind, looking at the impact of this period. True, we were thrown into this isolation, quarantine, social distancing, and learning a new way of life. And most of us, or some of us, are doing better than others. And we're grateful if we are within the category that we are accepting it and making the best out of it. However, we should also think about post quarantine, what life is going to be about, and kind of mentally, although we are in quarantine right now, start thinking ahead of the game, or being ahead of the game a little bit, and getting ready to that back to normalcy, and what is that gonna look like. But what I want to share with you here, because we're still in quarantine, there is a book that's by Dr. Murthy Vivek. It's called Together, the Hidden Power of Human Connection in Sometimes Lonely World. And he talks about anxiety and kind of just these panic attacks and fear and kind of all this negative side effect of being in isolation. Because, I mean, let's face it, we are social animals and we live in communities, and living in social distancing like that is not a natural thing. So it has an impact. So I would love just 2 minutes to share with you some of his tips, because the purpose of what we do is really helping people cope and deal with whatever the situation is, and help them get from where they are and where they need to be happier, more fulfilled, find balance. And this is an important aspect of it. So Dr. Murthy talks about strengthening social connection. And some of the tips he's given here is that dedicate 15 minutes daily to engage, even if it's virtually, with somebody you love, somebody that brings you joy. So having that long distance, even phone call, Zoom, whatever, with that somebody who you really care about and love, kind of gives you a sense of enrichment in a way, because as we all know, the people we love impact us in a much higher and deeper level than the rest of the world. So we need to understand that. When you're having these interactions, even if they're virtual, think about quality rather than quantity. So focus on having a quality time, even if it's like this face to face. Give them your full attention. Don't get distraction. You know, again, we go back to distractions. Distractions are really the worst enemy of being in the moment, you know, and the way you get fulfilled in life is really focusing on living in the moment. Whatever you are doing, be in that moment and learn how to focus on the person or the object or the activity in the moment. And then he talks about, and this is to me a very important point, because I'm all about growth and I'm all about giving, and you can't grow without giving, and you can give without growing. So it's kind of the circle of life, and we're put in this planet to, you know, to achieve our own fulfillment, but also to help another, to love one another. So he says that help others through social consciousness. When you focus on others, you build connection, discover others, and add value to those in need. And in addition, when you start giving and you see, whether it's money or time or effort or knowledge, whatever skills, whatever you're giving when you do give and people are well receptive for the gift you're giving them, you gain out of it a sense of significance and a sense of importance and relevancy, because even though you live in isolation, you're still contributing to the community, and that makes a huge difference. So I wanted to share this with you guys, because like I said, how can we make our isolation meaningful, and how can we transition into post-isolation, and what is that going to look like?
No, I think I appreciate that so much, because it's important that, you know, sometimes when you're getting so much information and there's so much uncertainty, that you have that hope that you can look forward to, right? So I think that's a very critical point. We have 2 more questions coming in, and then we'll move to close, inshallah. So one is, what is, and this is for all of you, what is the role of consistency in productivity? So how does consistency impact your routine, and how can it also impact your spirituality? And I'll open it to anyone who would like to take it first. So,
well, I had a bullet in my little outline earlier on consistency, because you know, John Maxwell actually has a really good book called The 15 Invariable Laws of Growth, which we use intensely for personal growth. And as you know, growth is intentional. Growth doesn't just happen. And consistency is a very important element of it, because consistency sets people apart. You can have an amazing idea, you can have an amazing project, you can be an amazing person, but if that happens just at one time and you're not consistent, nobody even cares, and you're just going to disappear like this. So you have to understand that consistency sets people apart, and it is really the foundation of success. And then I want to read to you here a quote from Michael Angier, and he said, if you develop the habit of success, which is pretty much consistency, you will make success a habit. So that's what you need to focus on. You can't go to the gym one time and hope to have 6 packs. It doesn't happen that way. You can't eat a lettuce or like a good salad one time and call yourself a healthy person. What sets you apart from that, you know, good physical workout person or athletic or whatever? It's consistency. So it is a very important part of your success, your growth, and your development, because you cannot do something once and never look back to it again.
absolutely.
That's perfect. And I just want to add to that, because I think in this changing world we're in right now, the problem is consistency, right? You may have been very productive and successful and consistent, and all of a sudden your world has changed, right? Overnight, we all had to develop new systems and new manners of communicating. And, you know, for CAIR-Florida, entire programs, right? We had to change everything. And so I think right now, a lot of people are kind of looking at their productivity and saying it's off. Well, of course it is. We've lost, you know, like you said, that consistency. And I think to be successful right now, one of the things we have to consider as individuals, as supervisors, is helping your team find that new pattern of consistency, right? Letting them know that there's going to be a little bit of trial and error. Does something work? Does it not? And how you can intentionally plan for that and then tweak your plan. You know, one of the tools you mentioned, Shaba, was like your timekeeping. You know, right now, you know, you may have already done that once, but maybe time to do it again, just to figure out what your new pattern is of where your time's being sucked away from you. And again, as professionals, we're like, oh, we already have this down. I already got my schedule. But again, remember, our world has changed. We don't know for how long. So do some of these basic exercises again, and maybe we can share. I think you shared some of them in your slides, Shaba, but maybe we could share with you some of these basic timekeeping strategies, and do them again, even if you've done them before, because your world is now different.
Yes, I want to point out that I am going to do a quick screen share at the very end with the booklet tips and tricks that Shaba put together. And we're also going to do our best to share that with you guys on social media. And if you want, you know, an copy emailed to you, just go ahead and add your email into the chat box, and we'll make sure that you get it. It's everything that we've kind of been discussing over the call. Hassan, I'm going to adjust the question for you a little bit put you on the spot a tiny bit, because you mentioned how your routine is constantly changing. So like, you never have two of the same days. So we had a question come in that says, what if your home obligations are constantly changing week to week or day to day? How do you balance the anxiety and the stress that can cause to kind of continue that type of consistency? So you mentioned a few things that you did before, but if you have anything additional to add.
Yeah, I mean, of course, consistency is key and is healthy. We have a saying, "Al-istiqama khayrun min alfi karama." To be consistent is better than having 1,000 miraculous feats that you're able to do. أحب العمل إلى الله أدومها وإن قل. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us that the most beloved deed to Allah is the most consistent, even if it is little. That being said, of course, because of the nature of our work, because of the nature of our lives, there are things that we can do consistently, and there are things that we cannot do consistently. And there is nothing that Allah commands us to do consistently, except that we have the ability to do it consistently, and that should ground us. So our sister mentioned the beautiful example for daily salah. Some of us, for example, we're out there in the world, we may be running late on our salah, not praying it in punctually because of the meetings of this, that, and the other. But in reality, now Allah's paused everything. So you know what? Build that habit of your salah. There's no excuse. You can do it, and you will do it, and it's doable, it's achievable. And then that grounds you. It's a nice break from the world. It's refocusing, it's recalibrating, it's reminding you, why are you doing what you're doing? Are you doing this work just to earn a lot of money? Are you doing it just to get praised? Well, that's all finite, that's all temporary, it's not going to last. So you're doing it to please your creator. And as long as you're doing your best in your given circumstance, then your creator is pleased with you, even if you're not producing at 100%. Even if you spent half the day now nurturing, the kids that are running around, or the sick spouse, or this or that, you know what? You may not be achieving 100, but in what you wanted to do, but you're doing the work God wants you to do. So you refine your purpose. So my advice is be consistent in that which you can be consistent. So that would be the daily salah. I would also add some prayers in the morning and the evening that sort of structure you, that ground you, that remind you of your purpose. And then I would say, learn to enjoy the moment. Like that's, and our sister mentioned it very well, and that's a very important takeaway from this. Even Alan Watts, who's a philosopher, he mentioned this idea that many human beings are always caught up in they're happy now only because they're thinking of a future that they may be happy in. Don't be so caught up about the future and from a dunya perspective. Make the most of now and work for the akhirah, the hereafter, yes. But if you can't enjoy today, you can't enjoy tomorrow. You never live in tomorrow, you always live in today. Today is all you have. The way I like to see life is you just have one day that you live, and you get to do it again and again, and every day you get to perfect it and make it better. So just make the most of today. If you don't wake up when you go to sleep tonight, you're going to be happy, with how you lived your last day, and just enjoy it. And God loves balance. So, and there's reward in everything we do. So as long as, you're doing what is most important, and you have to really believe that what I'm doing now is the most important thing I can be doing. And if it isn't, you shouldn't be doing it. So if I'm here working and, a child, trips and falls outside, and I go help them, well, helping the child at that moment is the most important thing I could be doing. It's more important than anything else, and then when you come back from that break, okay, now, what is the most important thing I can be doing at this moment? Just do that and focus on that. Try your best, and there's barakah in that, and ground yourself with whatever you can. Keep consistent, and just enjoy the moment. Be grateful that you're breathing, that you're witnessing the creation of God, that you're alive. Say Alhamdulillah, and that's why the Prophet ﷺ did. I mean, when you're asking for a saying, I'll finish with this: La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no power or might except Allah. That's a cure, they say, for 99 diseases, the least of which could be anxiety and depression. So focus on that. And then I will say this though. If it really gets problematic, definitely invest in professional therapy and guidance and mentorship or coaching, of somebody that you can really work out, how you can manage your stress and your workload together.
Thank you.
And if I may add something regarding consistency and the whole idea of plan your work and work your plan and what you can manage. I think a lot of people get just exhausted before they even start, and they give up, because they anticipate this idealistic lifestyle. And that's not how it goes. You need to start with baby steps. Either if you want to eat healthy or exercise or build the next big business or spaceship or whatever you do, it all starts with baby steps, and manage day to day in a way that you feel satisfied that every day set up one step that gets you closer to your goal without feeling overwhelmed.
Absolutely. No, I really appreciate that. I appreciate all of the wonderful advice that we've been given today. I want to take the last 4 minutes just to share very quickly with everyone. So hopefully you all can see now. So this is a little bit of a booklet that Shaba has graciously prepared for us as a special treat for everyone who's joined the call. So it has the points that we've spoken about during the call, as far as what you can do to strengthen your mental health, what your mindset, how you can kind of condition it, being consistent, being disciplined, being grateful. She's put in different exercises for each of the different areas so that it's something practical advice that you can immediately start to implement. So again, we're going to try to share this via social media, inshallah, but we also encourage you guys to go ahead and put your emails in the chat box right now, and we'll make sure that you get a copy emailed to you. We'll probably also add you to our newsletter, just FYI, but we'll make sure that you get that PDF. And I also want to encourage everyone to join us every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern time. We have a great set of rotating topics and speakers. Next week we have Sister Delia Mugahed from the Institute of Social Policy and Understanding, who has a great conversation for you guys. We also have CAIR-Florida Connections every Sunday at 5 p.m. So Sunday evenings, you want to wind down and you want to get some more great content. This Sunday, we have a CAIR-Florida Advocates Connection. So we're inviting everyone to become a CAIR-Florida advocate and really work to represent your community and to advocate on behalf of the Muslim American community. Like the panelists have mentioned, when you give service, to others, that's a great way to kind of replenish your spirituality and hopefully increase your own productivity. So I want to say thank you to everyone, for joining. This webinar is on Facebook Live. So check out the CAIR-Florida social media, and it's recorded for anyone who just joined. I think a few people have just joined. You can add your email address into the chat box so that we can email you the notes from this session. We have a comment that it was truly amazing. Loved it. Great pieces of advice. So thank you, Sister Shaba, and to all of our panelists. If anyone wants to close this out, I'll give you the floor the next 30 seconds.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. I'm grateful that the challenge of the virus situation has pushed us to do things we wouldn't normally do. And I think this is a great program we're going to be keeping up. Hopefully you found it beneficial. Please do share it. You can share it. It is on our Facebook. So go to our Facebook, check it out, share it, invite friends. If you found it beneficial, consider clicking the donate button on the Facebook Live video. CAIR-Florida does rely on a lot of fundraisers in Ramadan to sustain our efforts, and all of those are pretty much canceled. So we're going to have to switch to the digital stage. So if you want to support the great work CAIR-Florida is doing, consider clicking that. Next, we need you to amplify. We need you to amplify our calls to action. Right now, 2 very important calls to action that we have. Number 1, if you haven't filled out the census, it's very important we are counted. And we're going to do a separate program on the importance of filling out the census, but I want to catch the audience that we have today and encourage you all to fill out the census. You can Google, how do I fill out the census, and just make sure you fill out the census for yourself, your family, your loved ones. Fill that out for your home, and make sure you're registered to vote. These 2020 elections are going to be critical, and people's lives are at stake. So make sure you register to vote, fill out the census, share this video, keep us in your prayers. Jazakallah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.